When you're using small and slow solutions to build a food forest, your initial victories are also going to be small and slow. And while it might seem silly or insignificant to really celebrate those victories, they're an important part of the journey, a journey of patience that eventually leads to plenty. So today we're going to take a look at some of the small victories that are happening here at Onion Grass Food Forest. Let's get to it. I'm Jessie, and this is Onion Grass Food Forest. And the overarching goal of my food forest is to produce food for me and my family in a way that is both sustainable and responsible towards nature. So one of the strategies, a common strategy in permaculture that I choose to employ to do that is small and slow solutions. So let's take a look at what that means. One small and slow solution is growing things from seed. So you can see here, I have a couple of globe artichokes that I am growing from seed. And it would be quicker and easier to buy it from the store and get a much more mature plant. But like I said, we are using small and slow solutions. These solutions are also way easier on the pocketbook. Here I have some Russian sea buckthorn. These will be a small nitrogen fixing tree that I can plant as companions to some of my other plants. I'm also growing many annuals from seed, like these tomatoes. And also these. These are two pear trees that I planted from seeds just from a pear that I ate. I cold stratified them in the fridge, and then two of those seeds sprouted, and so here they are. I'm gonna have to find a place to put them, but you can see this is one small and slow solution, right? It's a very sustainable way to add to my food forest because it doesn't cost me anything. I already bought the pear to eat, and seeds don't cost a lot. Creating a polyculture is another small and slow solution. So a polyculture, the word means poly meaning many and culture meaning to cultivate or to nurture. And you can see behind me I have a guild where I am nurturing or cultivating many different plants together. And what that does is it reduces disease and pest pressure. So for example, you can see in the polyculture guild behind me, I have things like rhubarb, onion, garlic. I have blueberries, clover, hazelnut, and all of these things are growing together. Now, as a gardener, it would be faster and easier for me to grow everything of the same type together in a monoculture, such as just a row of onions, right? But if there was some kind of pest or disease that was affecting my onions, they would all be in the same spot, making it easier for that pest or disease to spread. But since I have my onions spread out between multiple places in the food forest, that not only decreases that pest and disease pressure, but those plants also have their own role within those polycultures. So for the example, the onions have create a pungent smell that can confuse those insects that are looking for food to eat. So if I have onions next to, let's say, lettuce, it's going to be harder for those insects to find those just by the scent. And because, remember, part of my goal is to be responsible towards nature, I'm not using sprays here. I'm not spraying insects. I'm not using chemical fertilizers. So all the plants that I plant need to work together in a system. They also need to attract their own polyculture of insects. So the wider variety of plants that I have, the wider variety of insects they attract. Now, if I were only attracting destructive insects, that would be a problem. But again, because I have a polyculture going, I am building a population of insects that also includes pollinators and predators, predator insects, such as ladybugs, hoverflies, predatory wasps. There's a large number of insects that help to keep the population of insects that would be destructive to my food low. And in creating a polyculture, that creates that solution. However, it's not instant. It builds over years. So the first couple years I've been here, I have not had a great population of ladybugs, for example. But this spring, they've been all over my fruit trees, which is fantastic because they've been keeping all the aphids in check. And they have been attracted by, for example, the cilantro that I let go to seed and the other flowers that I allow to bloom or plant on purpose. So creating a polyculture creates a long-term sustainable solution to pest and disease control while I'm still growing nutritious food for my family. Propagation is also a really great example of small and slow solutions. So here what we're looking at is Egyptian walking onions, and you can see these are funky little, like, Dr. Seuss looking onions, right? Looks like Dr. Seuss drew these for one of his books. I got weird little curls and all kinds of stuff going on here. But the important point is that these are a self-propagating onion. What does that mean? That means that these onions produce little bulbs at the top of their stalks. And eventually this gets too heavy, they fall over, and they plant themselves. That's right, it's an onion that plants itself. So this year we probably won't be eating many of these onions. We'll probably taste a few, but other than that, we're gonna let them go ahead and propagate in the way that they are already doing. Just like this one here. It is going to take a few years for these Egyptian walking onions to really fully propagate and to make a big difference in what we're eating. But again, this is a small and slow solution. We have grabbed perennial onions. They take a little longer to reproduce, take a little longer to take effect, but eventually what we're going to end up with is a lot of onions that plant themselves. Onions that we are not going to have to plant year after year, which is a very sustainable solution for me and my family. You might recall from one of my previous videos that I transplanted an upland cress or highland cress or creasy greens next to another plant that popped up on its own. You can see the transplanted one is not nearly as happy as the one that seeded itself and volunteered in this spot. But look at this little victory we've got right here. See those? Those are seed pods. Yep. Both of these are forming seed pods. So now we're going to be able to propagate these. These are a wild plant, by the way, if you missed the previous video. These are a wild plant that are completely edible, and now we're going to be able to propagate them around the food forest because we have seeds, folks. We have seeds. Building your own compost is another small and slow solution. Now, could I spend hundreds of dollars to get a couple tons of compost trucked in? Sure, I could do that, and that would be a fast and quick solution, right? Or I could build the soil fertility on my property over time with what I have available. By using and creating my own compost, I'm employing the microbes that are already here, that are already going to help my soil to break down organic material so that I can use it here in the food forest. We can also employ things like clover, beans, sea buckthorn, gummy berries, a wide variety of nitrogen fixing plants that form symbiotic relationships with the microbes in the soil to fix nitrogen in the soil. And that has some added benefits itself. So a quick solution would be for me to go and buy some kind of fertilizer with nitrogen in it, right? Dissolve it, put and water it into the soil, right? But the problem with that is once that's used up, it's gone. It's not sustainable. Not for me, not for the plants. I have to keep buying it in order for the plants to have it. However, if I use the other smaller, slower solutions, like planting bush beans and clover, well, those have the benefit of being totally sustainable and totally natural. So I can plant in bush beans, fix nitrogen into the soil. And you know what? One of the added benefits is that our family gets to eat beans. You know what my family can't eat? A bag of potassium nitrate. So small and slow solutions are better for the environment, better for the soil, better for the plants, better for my family, and better for the budget. That's winning on a lot of fronts, folks. So as you're going along and having these tiny victories, you know, that first little handful of berries, your first pound of onions, just remember that these small and slow solutions are going to have their small and slow victories before they really notch it up after a few years. So be patient and keep gardening.